Ruth Feldman stood in her small Chicago apartment, the scent of old books and lavender air freshener mingling in the air. At 70, her hands were steady but her heart wasn't. She clutched her phone, scrolling through Instagram, her thumb freezing on a photo of her daughter Emily, radiant in a graduation cap, surrounded by her fiancé's family, toasting with sparkling cider under fairy lights. The caption read, "Best day ever with my favorite people." Ruth's name wasn't mentioned. She wasn't in the photo. She hadn't even been invited. For 5 years, Ruth had poured her savings into Emily's dreams. $30,000 for grad school tuition at Northwestern, $12,000 for rent in a sleek Lincoln Park apartment, $5,000 for a used Honda Civic when Emily's old car died. Ruth, a retired librarian living on a modest pension, had eaten canned soup for months to cover those expenses, skipping her own small luxuries. A new winter coat, a weekend trip to the Art Institute. She'd imagined herself at Emily's graduation, beaming in a navy dress she'd saved $150 to buy, posing for photos with her only child. Instead, Emily had called it a small, private celebration when Ruth asked about the ceremony. "Just close friends, Mom. You know how it is." Ruth knew how it wasn't. The photo showed Emily's fiancé, Tom, his parents, his sister, even his cousin from Milwaukee. Ruth, who'd spent $47,000 to make this day possible, wasn't a close friend. The betrayal stung like a Chicago wind in January, sharp and unrelenting. She set the phone down, its weight heavier than the 1,000-pound grief in her chest. The navy dress hung in her closet, tags still on, next to the new shoes she'd never wear to a graduation she'd never attend. For weeks, Ruth had planned. She'd called her friend Miriam in Evanston, gushing about Emily's master's in public policy. She'd scrubbed her apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in Rogers Park, thinking Emily and Tom might stop by after the ceremony for coffee and cake. She'd even set aside $2,000 as a graduation gift, tucked in an envelope in her dresser. All of it, her plans, her pride, her love, crumbled under Emily's casual dismissal. A week later, Emily's name lit up Ruth's phone. Her voice was bright, practiced. "Mom, I need a favor. The wedding's coming up, and we're short $8,000 for the venue deposit. Can you help? It's just this once." Ruth's grip tightened. She'd seen Emily's Pinterest board, lavish floral arrangements, a lakeside venue, a honeymoon in Tulum. The $8,000 wasn't for a deposit. It was for a luxury getaway Ruth would never be invited to join. She'd already given $1,500 for Emily's engagement ring, thinking she'd see it sparkle at a wedding she'd attend. Now she wasn't so sure. "Lena," Ruth said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "I need to think about it." She hung up before Emily could protest, her heart pounding. For years, Ruth had been the perfect mother. Silent, generous, invisible. She'd canceled book club meetings to drive Emily to interviews, skipped theater tickets to pay for her textbooks. She'd eaten oatmeal for dinner so Emily could have sushi with friends. And for what? To be left out of the most important day of her daughter's life? Ruth sat at her kitchen table, a chipped oak relic from her marriage to David, who died when Emily was 10. She pulled out her bank statements, her fingers tracing the numbers. Tuition, $30,000. Rent, $12,000. Car, $5,000. Miscellaneous. Groceries, phone bills. That time Emily needed a new laptop. $7,500. Total, $54,500. That was her retirement, her safety net, the money David had left for her to enjoy her later years. She'd given it all to Emily, believing it was love. Now, she saw it for what it was. A transaction where she got nothing but heartbreak in return. The phone rang again. "Emily." Ruth let it go to voicemail. "Mom, please." Emily's voice pleaded through the speaker. "We're counting on you. The wedding's in 2 months, and we can't lose this venue." Ruth deleted the message. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the familiar urge to fix Emily's problems. Instead, she felt something new, anger, cold and clarifying. The next morning, Ruth walked to the Chicago Public Library branch where she'd worked for 30 years. The familiar smell of paper and ink calmed her. She found her old colleague, Sarah, now a branch manager, and poured out the story over coffee in the break room. Sarah, a no-nonsense woman with a law degree she rarely mentioned, listened quietly. "Ruth, this is financial abuse," she said. "You need a lawyer. Now." Sarah recommended Helen Carter, an attorney specializing in elder law. Ruth met Helen in a sleek downtown office, the Chicago skyline glinting through the window. Helen reviewed Ruth's bank statements, her eyes widening at the $54,500 total. "This is egregious," she said. "Your daughter's been treating you like a bank, not a mother. We need to protect your assets immediately." Helen helped Ruth cancel automatic transfers to Emily's account, open a new bank account at a different credit union, and draft a new will to safeguard her remaining savings. "You should also consider a restraining order if they try to pressure you further," Helen advised. Ruth hesitated. Emily was still her daughter, but the memory of that Instagram photo, of being erased from her own daughter's life, steeled her resolve. Back home, Ruth's phone buzzed relentlessly. "Emily, Mom, why aren't you answering?" "Tom, we just want to talk, Ruth." Then, a text from Emily's future mother-in-law, Karen. "Emily's devastated. You're breaking her heart." Ruth turned off her phone. Karen, who'd posed proudly in those graduation photos, had no right to lecture her. None of them did. That evening, Ruth walked to her local bookstore, a cozy spot in Andersonville she hadn't visited in years. She'd stopped going because every dollar spent on herself felt like a dollar taken from Emily. Now, she bought a novel, a mystery, something to lose herself in, and joined the store's book club on impulse. The group, a mix of retirees, young professionals, and a chatty barista, welcomed her warmly. For the first time in years, Ruth felt seen, not as a mother or a wallet, but as herself. A week later, Emily and Tom showed up at Ruth's apartment unannounced. She saw them through the peephole, their faces tense. Ruth's heart raced. She'd never locked them out before, but she didn't open the door. "Mom, we know you're in there," Emily called. "We need to talk about the wedding money. And the bank said you closed our joint account. What's going on?" Ruth took a deep breath, channeling Helen's advice. She opened the door but stood firm in the doorway. "There's no more money," she said. "I've given you $54,500 over 5 years. I paid for your education, your car, your life. And you couldn't even invite me to your graduation." Emily's face crumpled, but Ruth saw the calculation in her eyes. "Mom, it was a mistake. We were stressed, it was last minute. You're overreacting." Tom stepped forward, his voice patronizing. "Ruth, we're worried about you. This isn't like you. Maybe you need to see someone, a therapist or—" Ruth cut him off. "Don't you dare suggest I'm losing it. I'm clearer than I've been in years. You excluded me from your life, but you still want my money. That ends now." Emily's tears came, but they were angry, not remorseful. "You can't do this, Mom. We planned the wedding around your help. You owe us."